Hello everyone. Welcome back to Bunny Musings. This is Bunny and this is episode 14 of Bunny Musings. Have you ever rewatched a childhood favorite and realized it's way funnier and way more adult than you ever realized as you were watching it as a kid? It's almost like the exact same film has an entirely different meaning when you rewatch it as an adult, and that is why today we are going to unpack the emotional logic of Toy Story. So, the original Toy Story came out in 1995, and yes, I know that we are in the great year of 2026, and it's been a long time, a really, really long time. And yeah, I'm not gonna try to do the mental math on that one right now because I'm like in a different headspace. But anyways, and Toy Story 5 just came out at the end of last month. I have not seen it, but today I wanted to see it, and so therefore we have to start at the beginning, and I realized that I like remembered the film, but the depth of all of the characters is so much more than I was anticipating, and the humor was very adult, especially from like Mr. Potato Head. Like, there is this sequence at the beginning of the movie, which, like, if you haven't seen Toy Story by now, there's gonna be spoilers. It's been out for a long time. But yeah, anyways, so Mr. Potato Head at the very beginning of the film kind of like mimes, like he takes off his mouth and he like mimes kissing his own butt, which is like as like an insult to Woody or whatever. And it's just it was kind of, that was the first hint that the rewatch wasn't going to be what I anticipated it to be. But yeah, so this is kind of gonna deep dive into Woody and why he's so hurt, and like Andy, his attachment to Andy, and then also a deep dive on Buzz, and then um, also like a section on Sid at the very end and like comparing him to Andy a little bit. So this might be a bit of a lengthy one. So bring your bring your drinks, bring your snacks. But yeah. So I just and I actually rewatched it for a second time in preparation for this video because I just wanted to be so sure of like everything I thought I gathered from the first rewatch. And yeah, it just kind of confirmed it more for me. So here's sort of the first point of this all could have been kind of avoided. Like the whole sequence of like Woody throwing Buzz out the window and sort of everything, if he just had someone he trusted that he could talk to. Like honestly, if Woody had a therapist, things would would have gone over a bit better. Um, but yeah, I think people so easily demonize emotions and emotional actions, but often built up emotions that aren't validated and expressed because of shame or fear of judgment, can often lead to emotional actions or behavioral changes. And so, like, when these emotions aren't addressed, they often get buried, and that's when they can influence actions and words and relationships, even like subconsciously. So when you like when it's like, oh, I'm feeling sad and scared and I'm feeling replaced. But when I don't acknowledge those feelings and when I sort of bury them and keep burying them and like don't let them get spoken and I don't even think about them, they get buried so deeply. But those emotions don't go anywhere. They're still there, they're still being felt, just not addressed. And so, what I think ends up happening is that it influences our like perception of the world, it influences like how we interact with the world and other people. And the difficult part is it's all like not in our immediate awareness anymore because those emotions have been suppressed, right? And so that's sort of what happens to Woody in this movie is he was feeling replaced by Buzz and just sort of like his whole identity was based around Andy and being Andy's favorite and sort of being in charge of everything. And he's like the sheriff in town, if you will. And the thing is, if the other toys would have seen how Woody felt about Andy replacing him with Buzz and sort of let him talk openly about it, even to just one friend, he wouldn't have been as hurt and as angry and pushed Buzz out the window. And it's not that the anger wasn't harmful or morally gray, like his expression of how he did, because he put Buzz's life in danger. Like they were out of, like, about to move houses, and he essentially pushed Buzz out of the window and, like, was going to give him a lost toy life if other things hadn't happened. But it's more like the hurt underneath was the genuine emotion that could have been addressed and taken care of. And actually, on my watch through, it was like so apparent to me that Mr. Potato Head was like the main instigator of all of the harmful comments that sort of like amplified Woody's fear, Woody's anger, his hurt, and so sort of amplifying those emotions, but also like shaming them at the same time was probably like what led to all the bottling up, which, like, the timeline of this movie is really strange to me because it seems like a lot of time and very little time has passed at the same time. Because it's Andy's birthday and they're coming up on a move, and then there's that whole sequence of Woody being replaced by Buzz Lightyear things over time, like the pictures Andy draws, the bed sheets, the posters on the wall, just like all of those different things, like the little costumes that Andy wears, everything sort of gets replaced with like Space Ranger branded stuff. And and like right before a move, I don't know, just like to me, redecorating before a move is crazy. But you know what? Maybe Andy's living his best life. And honestly, the biggest reason why Woody was so hurt is because of like attachment theory and the bond and attachment that Woody has to Andy. Because more than any other toy that is in Andy's room, Woody had the experience of sleeping next to Andy at night and playing with him all day. He's like pretty much the only toy that we've seen that gets regularly taken out of Andy's room to, he goes sliding down the stairs in the beginning, and then he gets launched off the rocking chair, reclining chair, whatever it is. And it is a reclining chair. I don't know. Sometimes the reclining chairs rock, you know? But anyways, they can do both. Uh, anyways, and so he's also like taken out of the home, which I'm sure we can imagine because he's been Andy's favorite toy since he was 3, I think they said in the movie. And Woody's like clearly treated with great care and like concern when he's missing. But the other toys likely didn't have as strong of a bond to Andy because they were constantly being rotated or they were like side characters to Woody as the main hero in Andy's playtime stories. And they probably joked about it to him because it was normal to them. Like I said, Mr. Potato Head was the main instigator. I don't know for certain if he was being malicious by constantly repeating, "You're getting replaced," to Woody, or if he, like, there's like impact versus intent. So he doesn't necessarily have to intend for Woody to feel bad in order for those jokes to land wrong. That's kind of the thing. It's like, is Mr. Potato Head doing it on purpose? I don't know. I like his mentality isn't discussed much in the first film. He just kind of is quick to judge and he's quick to say the first thing on his mind. He kind of has a bit of crude humor, and that's sort of just like his personality that is expressed. And so ultimately, his humor had a negative impact on Woody's mental health, which, yes, we are talking about the mental health of toys. And so, because, like, it's entirely possible that Mr. Potato Head was already jealous of Woody. You know, not that he had malicious intent, but he was making jokes because he's felt that way for a long time, not being Andy's favorite and always being a side character. Actually, in the film, in the little play session that we see with Andy and Woody for the first time, Mr. Potato Head is portrayed as the villain. And, he's like, I got my, like, what is it, like, force field dog or whatever, and it's Slinky being whatever. And then, yeah, it's, so there's totally a possibility that he didn't mean harm, but he was just expressing his own jealousy and sort of resentment over time for, you know, just not being the favorite and being portrayed as the villain. And maybe that's why he said those mean comments, because he was just projecting. But also, if he wasn't, and that was just like how he felt about the situation, and he thought it was funny, it's because all of these other toys are used to being sidelined, so it's like a normal experience for them. They've never really had that special treatment from Andy, and so they don't know what it's like to be bonded to him for that amount of time and to do lots of things with Andy and to always be receiving attention and care. And I'm sure like the level of attachment that the other toys feel to Andy is less than what Woody feels to Andy. So, unless the other toys had tons of empathy or lots of emotional intelligence, then they would have had a difficult or ineffective way of regulating Woody through this crisis. Because Woody had no one to mirror him in the way that he needed, and it takes like an ample amount of self awareness to do that sort of work alone, to mirror yourself in, or even to just be aware of those emotions, especially if there's like time for those emotions to get buried before the work happens. I'm sure it un like pulling up unconscious patterns and thoughts. Is it, do I keep saying unconscious? Subconscious. Subconscious. I swear. Did I write unconscious or no, I wrote subconscious. Maybe I said unconscious. Anyways, you know what I mean. But we confuse the terms. But I mean subconscious. Below the conscious thought. But yeah. So, and what really made this attachment between Andy and Woody so strong is that Andy's identity was in part Woody, and like being a cowboy, being a sheriff, like wrangling up the cattle and being a hero and saving things. That's sort of how Woody was typecasted, and that's how Andy saw himself through Woody, because like his bed sheets were all Western themed, and his room decor, his drawings, everything sort of portrayed that phase of his life, that interest. But as Andy starts to play with with Boar, what the hell? With Buzz, all of that sort of gets replaced. And so maybe it's possible that Woody might feel like it's not even the same Andy that he knew anymore. And he doesn't know how to deal with that, the concept of someone you love changing. Because it's not like Woody could say anything or have a conversation with Andy and ask him for reassurance that he was still loved and cared for, because toys can't talk, toys can't um, be alive in front of their owners and in front of humans. And honestly, when I thought about that, I was like, ooh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, he couldn't ask for reassurance, but that sort of mirrors reality too at the same time. When people are too scared to be vulnerable, when people they love change and ask for reassurance that despite this change, do you still care about me? Because reassurance, when there's attachment between people and when there's like nervous system safety signals involved, reassurance isn't inherently a bad thing, but it's sort of painted that way sometimes as like neediness or being too fixed. But sometimes reassurance is needed for that sense of security and attachment. You know, there's like a baseline of like, I need to feel safe with my safe people, is kind of how I think about it. And so, yeah, sort of all of that goes to say is that Andy has changed and the environment has changed. Like all of the other toys love Buzz. They all, like, nobody else is annoyed with Buzz the way Woody is. Nobody else is frustrated with him or enraged by him. And a lot of it has to do with that emotion, like that I'm hurt and that hurt isn't getting addressed, so it's like resentment and anger and all of those other things get like stacked on top of it. And then Woody's just a guy trying to deal with it all. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so here we have reached the Buzz section. Now, Buzz was very interesting to me in a particular way because he's the only toy in the entire movie that isn't aware that he is a toy. And that confused me for a bit because I was like, why does he not know? Because none of the other toys seemed resistant or unaware of how they existed in reality. Like Buzz had such a strong, I'm a space ranger personality. And it doesn't make sense to say that it was programmed into him either, because it's not like he has computerized aspects of him. He's just an action figure. And it sort of made me wonder what the mechanics are behind that, since all of the other toys are aware that they are toys. Like, do they just get introduced and they're like, hi, you're a new toy, and they're like, I'm a toy, what? Like, I really don't know how that goes down. But eventually Buzz sees a commercial about the Buzz Lightyear action figure toys while he's in Sid's house, and has a major despondent identity crisis over not being a real space ranger. But like, why does it matter that Buzz is out of touch with reality other than as a plot device to annoy Woody? Because none of the other toys seemed to care about Buzz's bold claims, and in fact, they kind of liked him. They were in awe of him because I don't know if they just didn't care to correct him the way that Woody tries to, but I don't know. Woody sort of has really selfish ambitions throughout sort of the entire film. And that was interesting to me because Woody is a main character and Woody is like, I don't know, meant to be a protagonist, but he's not a traditional protagonist, at least to me, because he sort of has quite a few faults. But I mean, I guess that sort of humanizes his characterization and it makes him complex, and that he's not like the hero that he's framed as in Andy's mind. I don't know. But I wouldn't say that Woody has a principle of integrity, because he sort of really falls short of it multiple times, sort of like lying to get his own way, or to convince things to move along, or to protect from panic. And, you know, some of those things, like the protecting from panic, he was trying to get the other toys to calm down at Andy's birthday party, you know, so that they wouldn't be in a panic about the new toy, when in reality he was panicked about the new toy. Um, and then he sort of like lies to get his way. You know, he lies when he claims that there's a fallen toy that needs Buzz's help right before he causes him to fall out of the window. And he also like lies to Buzz to get him to get in the Pizza Planet car. Um, you know, sort of using Buzz's own motivations against him just to like get him to agree with things or to move in the direction that Woody knows is best. Like, I don't understand. Like, I get that Woody has been around since Andy was 3, but I don't understand how Woody has such knowledge of the world, like how he knows what a lost toy is, all these different things, because, like, I suppose that Woody is like an adult toy in a way where it's like he's not necessarily made for small children. Um, but at the same time, it's like, why is he so grown up? Like, why do the intelligences of the characters and the toys in the film not match the intelligence of, like, the age range that Andy is, and like what they know and what they've been exposed to in the world is like what he knows and what he's been exposed to in the world? Because, like, how do they know so much when they haven't seen a whole lot, you know? Like, if they're confined into his bedroom, maybe they get to see TV, maybe, or maybe they hear the mom talk, but it's just like, why am I like, how are their world knowledges being developed? Because Woody is like very aware and like more than other toys, and certainly more than Buzz is. But I sort of wondered why um, Buzz was framed in this way, where it's like you kind of just want to smack him around a little bit, because it's like, why don't you understand that these are the way things are? But I wondered if it was a way for the creators of the film to build the audience's empathy for Woody by putting something general that universally bothers people, like too much ego with a lack of humility and reality checking. Because without Buzz being annoying, if he was just like a chill, nice guy that knew what was going on, then the viewer might see Woody as the villain of the film. And yeah, it sort of costs the other toys nothing to just go along with whatever Buzz says, but it costs Woody everything. His favorite spot, his friends. It's just like everything he's ever known and loved, and like his entire sense of self, as long as he's been with Andy, is kind of going to the wayside just by the introduction of this one toy. And so Woody eventually gets outcast for his emotions and his actions too, and like almost never makes it back home to Andy, which is so insane to me. But yeah, it's just like Woody is kind of a little devious, He's like not a clean cut hero in the way that I guess like other things are. I don't know. Or the way that children's films are, but after rewatching Toy Story, it like has so many elements where I'm like, how is this classified as a children's movie in most people's minds? It was like really bizarre to me, and it got to the point where I even started comparing Sid to Andy, which is sort of like the next big part of this whole thing. Before I get into that, just as a final note about the toys and the toy differences, Sid's toys are creepy, we know that, right? But like none of his toys talk like Andy's toys do. All of Andy's toys talk. Even the ones that seem like they don't have mouths to talk, talk. Like the I forgot what his name is, but I just rewatched it. Because RC doesn't talk, the little car doesn't talk, but the little binocular toy does talk. And, like, the toys can understand each other even if they don't talk the way that is expressed in the movie. Anyways, it was just really interesting to me, but I wonder if it's because they're scared. I have no idea. But Sid is really just like straight up torturing his toys. Like, it's like bad medical practice play, but also like straight up exploding them and all kinds of other things. And Sid is just plain cruel to his toys and to his little sister. He's very cruel to his little sister. And so him getting corrected and low-key traumatized by all of the toys feels like justice. But it's kind of wild to me that a child villain is being taught a lesson, but like he and his sister seem to be relatively unsupervised. Because how can a child blow up toys in their backyard and order fireworks without the parents saying anything? Like, Sid has access to money, Sid has locks on his door. I don't know if Sid is like characterized to be a bit older than Andy. It doesn't really look like it. He sort of seems like he's around Andy's age to me. But it's not really like expressed otherwise. So like I don't know if Sid was meant to be characterized as someone a bit older. Um, but it's like, how does he have this much access and this much freedom when he's around Andy's age? And meanwhile, Andy does not have that same level of access and freedom. Not to say that that's a bad thing. It's kind of like a protective thing for children of certain age ranges. You don't want them to just be able to do whatever they want. um, just like for their own safety, because children should not be playing with fireworks and matches and all of that stuff when they're children, by themselves without any supervision. And it sort of just made me think, where are the parents? So, in the context of the story, Sid is a villain to the toys. But it almost made me wonder, maybe something not entirely shown is not quite right. Because Andy is clearly loved, and his mother is present with him and his little sister. And like his little sister sleeps in his room, and like Andy helps take care of her. The whole family goes to Pizza Planet together, but Sid is alone at Pizza Planet. He's not with his parents. He took his own skateboard to get there. Where he got the money to spend at Pizza Planet, we don't know. Maybe he has like an allowance. But Sid goes to Pizza Planet and comes back alone, even though he has a younger sister and parents. And like his mother isn't shown. His father is like sort of glimpsed at, but yeah. So Sid is like mean to his sister. He steals her doll. He like does the whole head switcheroo thing. And the second she starts calling for their mother, he immediately jumps in to defend himself, and he's like, nothing she says is true, and like, blah blah blah, blah whatever. Just nothing she says is true. I didn't, all that. I was like, wow. Literally, she cried for not even 2 seconds, and he was already defending himself. Like, the mom didn't even get a chance to assess the situation, but also there's literal physical evidence that he did something to the toy. To the toys, actually, because he swapped them. But meanwhile, the father figure is shown asleep watching TV alone in a room where even the mean dog, Scud, backs off from entering instead of chasing Buzz into the room. And so the dog didn't necessarily give like fear as a body language, but it was definitely hesitation. And so even like Sid's little sister is playing alone with her headless toys that aren't replaced or protected from Sid. Like, she holds on to what she has even if it's been destroyed. And like, why aren't those toys being replaced? Like, why aren't those toys being protected? Like, where are the parents? Is sort of the thing. And it sort of shows this mirror into the lives of Sid and Andy. And they're like right next to each other. The households are right next to each other. And their lives couldn't be more different. Their aesthetics couldn't be more different. Andy's room is very bright and it's open and it feels like welcoming and inviting. And Sid's room is very dark and closed off, literally, because it has like 5 different locks on the door. And like, also, what is the child doing playing darts on the back of his door? Like, that's another crazy thing. And like, toolboxes, matches. I don't know. It really makes me wonder if Sid is older. But what really got me is that Andy has a ton of friends. And he has a birthday party literally next door. And Sid and his little sister are neighbors to Andy, but they aren't invited to the party at all. Like, he's not there. And yeah, it's not just that the jokes read differently to my adult brain, it's also like the entire emotional logic behind how the story works. And it was certainly a lot darker than I ever gave it credit for. Because how are these children unattended? You know, attachment wounds forming in real time. Um, yeah, and just like the concept of identity, which is really strange and sort of resolved at the end of the film because both Woody and Buzz eventually agree that being there for Andy and like being his toys is like sort of their purpose. And yeah, it was just like a whole lot of like, people sort of talk about this film as like, you've got a friend in me sort of friendship vibes, and I did not get friendship vibes at all from this film. it it's almost bizarre to me that that's like the main takeaway, that it's like a way to build friendship and find friendship. Like, Woody and Buzz are basically enemies, but it's almost like one-sided enemies until Buzz gets pushed out the window. And obviously he's like, I can't believe you would attack me like this. And he's like, lucky for you, on my planet, we don't teach revenge as a thing. But then he, like, fights Woody because he's like, guess what? We're not on my planet, are we? And also, like, he's a toy and his planet doesn't exist. But that is another thing. But yeah, this concept of identity is very deep for what I expected going into the rewatch, basically. And yeah, so I'm thinking of watching the rest of the films. So I have access to film 2, film 3, and film 4. And I also haven't seen the Buzz Lightyear movie either. I don't know if I'm gonna do videos on all of them. I really don't know what the plan is. But if they have something that I want to talk about, then I will talk about it, clearly. Um, but yeah, ultimately my goal is to be able to watch the fifth film with that in mind, or like all of the, character development over time. I really like to look at that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this very, very detailed breakdown. Well, it's not extremely detailed, but it's a breakdown of sorts from the lens that I like to look at it. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're having a good whenever. This was episode 14 of Bunny Musings. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.